Hello and welcome to the chesscreator.com YouTube video channel. In today's video I'd briefly like to review a game which happened recently in the British Championships that are going on at the moment in Sheffield, England, between Buckley and Howell. Now, I won't be going into the game in too much detail, that's already been covered by King's Crusher, but what I'd like to do is just touch upon one aspect of this, which is something I struggle with in my own game, and by explaining this I'm hoping that other people may recognise it in their game and perhaps seek to avoid it. And it's a very simple concept. It's tactical liabilities, and here I'm talking about pins and forks and discoveries, but more specifically when people threaten those, it's sometimes quite tempting to kind of counter-threat, almost in a poker way. So someone threatens to take your knight, so I'm going to threaten to take their rook, for example. And that's fine, that's a perfectly valid thing to do in chess, but certainly in my own games, bearing in mind I'm playing at a relatively modest level, I tend to find that these backfire often in horrific circumstances. And as you'll see in this game, these kind of tactical considerations can become very complicated even for international masters. So, quickly running through the game, Buckley was playing white, Howell was playing black. d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, bishop g5. And here we see a kind of a Torre-Trompowsky type of system, which is something that I'm personally quite interested in. Howell responds to that by some kind of King's Indian type Grunfels defense, and Buckley continues with thematic moves. The game continues, and at this stage white has the familiar pawn triangle, which is a familiar thing in the London system, the Colley system with c3, and also with the Trompowsky and Torre systems. So the game continues, knight bd7, bishop e2, rook e8, castles, e5. And this is where things speed up a little bit. Takes, and white decides to simplify here, which on the face of it seems relatively fine. c6 and queen a4. Personally, queen a4 seems a little bit strange. I'd have probably played queen c2 and looked to swing one of the rooks across, just to pressurize the black queen. But anyway, a4, dc. Now this is what I'm talking about, tactical liabilities and tricks with forks and pins. On the face of it, it looks like black is simply offering up this pawn, but clearly if the white bishop moves to c4, then black can simply move his pawn forward and fork the bishop and the queen. So this is what I'm talking about, where I talk about calculating tactical liabilities. So, what does white do in this situation? Well, clearly he doesn't fall for that trick. He swings his rook across, threatening black's queen. Black responds with queen b6. Now at this point, white is free to take the pawn if he wishes, because the threat of the fork is no longer there, and that's what he chooses to do. But, and this is the thing that I struggle with in my own personal games, is one has to remember that if this queen moves, then the threat of that pawn fork is renewed, and that can be quite a difficult thing to do, particularly in games that have quite short time controls. So this game continues, knight e4, and again black is threatening here that if this pawn moves and releases control of c3, that black can now fork the queen and the rook, and of course at the same time he's released a discovered attack on the pawn, so the pawn is now threatened for capture. So white responds with this with b4, and presumably he intends to respond to the threat of the fork, knight c3, by this concept of kind of raising a counter threat, moving queen to b2, getting a battery on here, and basically threatening to win pawn and rook, and being ahead in the exchange. And these counter threats can be very, very effective, particularly in Bullet and Blitz, because they're quite difficult to calculate. So how does black defend this threat? Well, very elegant move, queen c7, which not only defends the potential threat of white's battering ram, queen and bishop attacking f7, but also renews the double threat now of pawn to b5, forking the bishop and queen, and at the same time black has his other threat of the fork, knight to c3, forking queen and rook. And at this point it seems that Buckley miscalculates, or has miscalculated, the impact of b4, because the game continues. Rook c1 to mitigate the impact of the knight fork, but unfortunately that does nothing to prevent b5, which rather embarrassingly forks the bishop and the queen. Not much white can do about this. It carries on for a couple of moves, and at this point white resigns. So, quite an interesting example there of this concept of tactical liabilities relating to pins and forks and discovered attacks, and really the danger of answering a threat of one of those with a counter threat. So I hope this has been useful, and I hope it helps you be aware of these kind of problems in your own game, and hopefully improve your ratings a little bit. Thanks very much. I hope this helps. Bye.